Thank you so much for joining us today. This is going to be one of the most fun webinars that I've done in a while because we've got a lot of new Blueprinter AI features that we're going to be telling you about. An expert network where you can reach out and find from a million experts, people to interview if you're having trouble getting real customers. Some very powerful secondary market research. That's in step one of your Blueprinter software. By the way, this is all built into what you now have. If you're a subscriber to Blueprinter, there's no extra cost. There's no extra things. You just start enjoying these things. Now you can create trigger maps really quickly, and I'll review what those are if you're not sure what those are. Now, this feature we have had for 2 years. Everything else is brand new, but this one we've had for a couple of years, but it's foundational. It lets you get all these common problems, and then from there, you can download problem briefs on each problem, and you can role play with an AI customer and clear your amazing AI guide to get better. Now, the only one we don't have in place yet, we just want to just mention what we think is coming, probably by Q1 of next year, and that is you won't have to take your notes by hand anymore. Now, when we get to the fun part, which is doing some demos, if you have an example of a product and an application it's used in, let us know and we'll use yours. I like kind of trying things I haven't seen before and just see if it works, right? And so you won't be able to unmute, but what you can do is leave a chat message and Katie will unmute you, or you could leave your product and your application in there. You know, hydraulic cylinders for earth moving equipment or something like that. Okay. All right. Now, just a real quick 2-minute primer for those of you who have not done blueprinting, or maybe it's been a while. You basically do two types of interviews. You go out and do your qualitative discovery. If you make ingredients for paint, you're going to hear about hiding power and scrub resistance. You'll do several of those interviews in your target market segment and have dozens and dozens of outcomes. Then you'll go back to those same customers and do quantitative preference interviews. Ask them how important, how satisfied on a scale of 1 to 10. You hope to find some things that are important and not satisfied. And so you're diverging to all the outcomes and you're converging on the ones that matter. Why are you doing this? You're stopping errors of omission here, failing to uncover an unarticulated need. And you're doing stopping errors of commission here. And this happens all the time. B2B companies pick the wrong things to work on, and they waste huge amounts of their technical resources. So when you get that preference interview done, you get the market satisfaction gap. The more important and less satisfied, the higher the gap. You're looking for gaps of around 30% or more. Very simple formula. Importance times 10 minus satisfaction. There, that's your blueprinting overview. If you have some questions, we're going to have some Q&A at the end. We can talk more about that. Now, we're going to start covering these things. And we're going to start with BluePro's Expert Network. Katie, did we have anybody go into chat yet and give us an example? I didn't give them a lot of time, but any example we should use?
No volunteers quite yet, Dan.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, so let me go and share my screen. And I'm going to go into BluePros. And then if you hear something like, an ingredient that can be used in a certain product or something like that, let me know. Okay, and we'll give them a little bit more time here. For now,
Dan, I
though,
actually I actually did just receive Biocide for interior latex paint.
ooh, that's what we'll use then. Perfect. That's what we're going to go with. Let me go out here for now then. And for those of you who are users of blueprinting, let's start with the BluePros Expert Network, okay? So this is a new button. You may not have even noticed it yet, but at your blueprinting center, you click BluePros, and we have teamed up with an outfit called Maven. It's kind of like GLG, AlphaSites, GuidePoint, and you can now use this to find experts if you're having a hard time getting customer interviews. If you're going into an unfamiliar market, maybe your sales colleagues are reluctant to set up and schedule these interviews. Or you could just test new concepts. You could start with your preference interviews. We've had some clients do that as well. I think this is at Maven Research. And their pricing is just pretty darn good. Depending upon what the expert charges for an hour, it could be $300, $600, or $900. So I'm not going to say more about that, but if you're interested, either just reached out to Scott or me or Ann Iden and her team, or just hit the contact that button right there, and we'll get you started on this thing. So that's the first thing, is the Blue Pros Network. Now, the second thing we talked about was conducting secondary market research. So let's go here and let's imagine you're doing a project. Yeah, that's what I thought. I've been doing a little bit of playing around here, but I'm going to go into this thing called AI examples. By the way, there's a new demo up here. If you see demo, that means you can go into any of these projects, play around with them, and you won't break anything. When you leave it, it'll be back in its pristine form. So some of this is brand new as of yesterday. But I'm going to go into AI examples. And you know how this works in step one? You know, you go ahead and you brainstorm different possible markets for, in this case, your diesel fuel filter, okay? And you brainstorm some of those, and then you select some criteria, and then there's your market segments, and here are the criteria as columns. You do these ABCs, and then you pick a market that looks pretty darn good, right? A lot of A's here. So that's the basic tool. Now, it's always had these research sheets, but before you just had to go and do all this work and load it in. Now you hit this button, Add AI Research, and you fill in your market segment name, your region, your product, your customer's business, and what their job to be done is. Now, I'm not going to hit this button because it takes about 10 minutes to do this. So I just did it before our meeting started, and I'll show you what we're getting. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that maybe a little bit better. So it gave me all this market research on the total addressable market, the percentages, how it came about estimating it, and it gave me a bunch of sources. Now, under the market size, oh, there you go. Under market growth, it talked about all the different growth rates and how it developed those, the sources for those as well, what the key growth drivers were. And then it gave me market structure. Okay, level one was the fuel manufacturers, and then the OEM bulldozers and distributors and end users and so forth. And you could build a value chain with this once it was created, you know, if you wanted to. And then gave me market trends, emission standards, biofuels, electrification. And then it gave me who the customers, main customers, Caterpillar, Komatsu, Deere. And then it gave me the competitors, Fleetguard, Donaldson, and so forth. And then it gave me unmet customer needs, enhanced water separation and extended service. And then I stopped because I had to get ready for this webinar I'm doing. So it didn't get to market characteristics and recent market news. But we do subscribe to the largest news aggregator on the planet with over 200,000 sources. So that would be pretty cool too. But I would say allow, 10, maybe even 15 minutes for this. It's going to start populating after about 1 to 2 minutes, but it takes a little bit of time on this thing. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here. That is the first thing we talked about, is Blue Pros. That was the first. The second was the secondary market research. Now, the third are these trigger maps. And let me go back into, I'm going to use the same example here, AI examples. And you may remember that trigger maps are something you create that you can use later in the interview to trigger some new ideas. And those ideas go into blue sticky notes in Discovery. So I'm going to hit plus trigger map, and I'm going to create, let's go ahead and create a trends map here. I'll give it a name. I'll call this, you said biocides, right? Biocides. Okay. So I'm going to create trigger map, and now I'm going to hit let AI suggest something, and we're going to say our offering is biocide, and the customer is a paint producer. Okay, and let's imagine we're talking to the formulating chemist. Okay, we'll put formulating chemist in there, and their job to be done is formulate and manufacture and produce Interior, you said latex paint, didn't you, Katie?
Yes, for interior latex paints.
Okay, so I'm going to generate a map here. And now this was a lot of work before. You guys have done this before. You got to do research and all this kind of stuff. It decided, let me expand this so we can see it a little bit better here. It decided what the four main categories should be here: technology, sustainability, economic, legal, regulatory. And then it gave me all of these trends: biodegradable, low emissions, consumer protection laws, trade agreements. And for each one of these, I could mouse over and learn more. Now that's the map view. I could go to the outline view and see all of these trends, the macro and the micro trends more. And then I could also create a PDF up here. And so you might consider now in the future, when you're doing interviews, you could hand this out or send this to your customers so they would see the map and then they would see all these different trends down in here. Okay, so that is the trigger map. And you could do the same thing for the outcomes map as well. So you could let AI suggest a map here, and good to remember my biocide paint producer, generate a map, and once again, this could be quite a time saver here. So it's going to pre-purchase, supplier evaluation, all the way down to storing finished goods and shipping and yada, yada, yada. Okay, so that is the third item we've got here, creating market-specific trigger maps. The next three are all taking place inside a discovery interview. So what I'm going to do is I've been having a lot of fun with solar panel and grinding wheels. This is all customers have given us examples. I think there are over 100 of these now. We've got one of my favorites was somebody offered up embalming fluid as one of the examples. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click AI and I'm going to put in biocides for paint. Okay. Now, just like a regular human interview, right? Remember 2.1, that's where you put the interviewees, the company doing an interview. 2.5 is where you go to do the actual interview. So I'm going to go and I'm going to click on biocides for paint. Okay. Now, up till now, it's just like a normal human interview, but now it diverts when I click the little AI button up here. Okay. And so I'm going to put in biocides. See if it remembered that. Oh, it did. Look at that. So I've got my offering, the customer business type, the job function, that's optional, and their job to be done. And I like to ask for 40 problems. So let's go ahead and hit this thing. Now, the feature I'm showing you right now, we have had this out for almost 2 years. And so far, in over 100 runs on this, I have yet to have anybody say, no, that's really not what we see. So what you do with your team is you decide which of these might be good that you would want to consider. And you're kind of looking to see if these are the sort of things that your customers might come up with as well. And so we've got a lot of these in here: dispersibility, synergistic effect, deactivation, film formation. So you can see that it gives you a little explanation of what these are down below here. Okay, testing, color stability, rheology impact. So you can go through these and decide which you want to keep and which you don't want to keep. Or if most of them look really good, just hit the accept all here. Now, once you exit this AI mode up here, it's just as though you had done a discovery interview with a human. But now you've got this really fast. And what we recommend is running it different ways, doing it from the standpoint of operations, from the formulating, from marketing perspective. Try it with different types of latex paint. I had one client do like 35 different AI runs. Why do you do this? Well, one reason you do it is you can stop discovery interviews and start preference when you're hearing mostly echoes in human interviews. Well, if you do a whole bunch of AI runs first, you're going to start hearing echoes a lot sooner. And you don't have to do as many discovery interviews. In fact, it can cut down the number of discovery interviews in our experience by about half. and get to those critical quantitative preference interviews faster. So what have we covered? Blue Pros Expert, secondary market research, trigger maps, and then how to get a whole bunch of problems. So the last two are, notice we have a little AI down at the bottom of these. So if I pick any one of these, I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'll grab, I don't know, film formation. I don't know. Let me click this one. Now I can do two things with this. I can download a problem brief and I can role play. So let me do download a problem brief first. So remember what I had in here, and I'm going to generate this problem brief. And this is going to be available for all 40 of these. So anything that comes up as a problem from AI generated, you're going to get this nice problem brief. Let me drop this down here so we can see when this pops up here. Usually takes about 30 seconds or so to generate. And it will have some citations, some source citations at the end of this thing. So let's take a look. I'll zoom this up so you can see it a little bit better. So remember, this is still about biocide for interior latex, but just on the problem of film formation, the causes of it, why you might have that problem, how you measure film formation problems, the impact of solving that problem, and then some source citations here. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do with every one of these sticky notes. Now, the second thing you can do, I'll go back to film formation, is you can role play with an AI customer. So let me click this, and it remembered all of this. Now, Claire is my guide. Okay, she's going to help me. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to pick a customer here. How about Anthony? And hopefully my sound is on. Let me double check this. Computer sound. Yeah, here we go. We're going to have Anthony be my customer.
Hello, I'm Anton.
Oh, I like that. Hello. My name is Anthony. Do you know who I am? Okay, so we're going to hit the next button here. And you can do this either with typing or by using voice. And I'm a little lazy, so I'm going to go ahead and do this here. Now, I'm using our what, why, clarify method of probing. And for those of you who have been our course lately, you know you ask what questions first. Can you describe this? Where does it take place? When does it happen? How often? Then you'll get into why. How's this impact you? Then you'll create an outcome statement. So what I'm going to do is maybe do two what questions, one why question, one clarify, and then I'll start the next problem. So this may take, 3 or 4 minutes. So bear with me, but you'll see how this goes. So Anthony, can you tell me what kind of problems you're seeing?
Yeah, the big headache right now is making sure the biocides we add don't mess with our paint's ability to form a nice, even film on the wall. Sometimes we've noticed streaks or uneven coverage and it's tough to nail down what's causing it.
Great start. You've uncovered a specific problem from the customer. Now focus on asking several what questions to dig into the details. Try to clarify what even film means to Anthony, how they currently detect film disruptions, and what metrics or tests they use. For example, you might ask, how do you typically measure if the film is uniform?
So Anthony, how would you know if that film is even enough?
Typically, we'll do drawdown tests on test panels and look for things like streaks, blotchiness, or differences in gloss. We also use a gloss meter to see if the finish is consistent across the surface.
Excellent. This is in what question, and you're narrowing in on how the customer evaluates film uniformity. Try to get more detail. What's their pass/fail threshold? How much variation is acceptable? You could ask, what level of gloss variation would be a problem for you?
So Anthony, do we know what causes this streaking in the film?
Sometimes it's the combination of certain additives, but biocides seem to make it worse in some recipes. We suspect interaction with thickeners or surfactants, but there's a lot going on in the formulation, so it's hard to isolate.
Good, what question? You're gathering context around possible causes. Keep drilling into specifics. Ask about which biocides or paint formulations have shown the most issues, and if the problem is consistent or intermittent. Consider, which biocide types or concentrations have you noticed causing more streaking?
So, Anthony, how is this problem of uneven coverage impacting you? That was my why
It's
question.
mainly affecting our quality control rejections. Batches get held back and sometimes we can't release them to customers. It slows down our production and it's frustrating for the team because we end up wasting material.
You just asked a strong why question. Well done. Now, try to quantify the impact. How often does this issue occur? What's the cost or time involved when it happens? You might follow up with, how frequently do batches get rejected for this? Or what does a quality rejection typically cost your team?
So, Anthony, are you saying you want to minimize the frequency of uneven coverage or streaking in the film formation of interior latex paint?
Yes, exactly. Our goal is to keep the finish as uniform as possible so we don't have to worry about rework or customer complaints. If we could cut down the frequency of these issues, it would make production and customer satisfaction a lot better.
Great clarify question. You confirmed the priority outcome. Now, it's wise to ask if there are any further problems with biocides or other formulation issues that you should know about. For example, are there any other issues you're seeing related to biocides in your formulations?
So, Anthony, beyond this issue of uneven coverage, are there any other problems you're seeing?
Lately, we're also concerned about the long-term stability of the paint in the can. Sometimes we get settling or separation after storage, especially with certain biocide packages.
Excellent problem-seeking question to expand the conversation. For this new problem, cycle back to what questions? Ask Anthony to describe how he measures or observes the degree of
Goodbye. Okay, I was kind of rude, wasn't I? But Claire's pretty forgiving here. So now I can view the interview summary to see how things went here. And it tells me how many questions I asked. I just started the second problem here, but my what questions, my why questions, some advice. Claire wanted me to ask more what questions, you may have noticed, but I was cutting this short. And then what I'm doing well, and so on and so forth. So that's basically how that works. Let me go back to where we were here. And so that wraps up the new features. Now let me go back to my PowerPoint slide deck, and in just a few minutes, we're going to open this up for any questions you've got or observations. You will have to go to the chat, and if you want, you can ask Katie to unmute as well. But the last thing, beyond those first six that we just covered, is what's coming next. And we think this will be ready by the first quarter, but we think you will not have to have a human note taker. Now, not every customer of yours is going to feel comfortable being recorded, but here, just picture this scenario. You could just have one of you doing an interview, and when the interview begins, let's say it's, and you have to have Teams for this, Microsoft Teams. When the interview starts, the customers will see the same sticky notes they always see on this virtual interview. But you and your colleague, if you have one, will have a separate panel on yours. And what will happen is it will detect your voices and ignore them. And it will only record the customer's voices on the sticky notes. So you don't have to type anymore. And then you'll have a little side panel recommending some what questions, some why questions, and even recommending what the outcome statement can be. And then if they like the outcome statement, you can click it and it will fill in that header. And so that will be coming, we think, around Q1 of next year. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. So I covered this pretty darn quickly here, but we got it done within the 30 minutes. I will stay longer than 30 minutes if you have lots of questions. as long as you need. But Katie, let's see if we have any questions that came through on the chat.
We do have a question, Dan.
Okay.
What kind of knowledge base drives the answers of the interview role play or the AI-driven trigger generator?
Great. So for the problems and for the trigger map, it's being generated by ChatGPT-4. For the problem, and that's a role playing also. For the problem brief, where you see all the citations, that's being driven by Perplexity. Now, a lot of our clients are very concerned about security. And so we are SOC 2 certified. This stuff is never used for training purposes. And within Microsoft Azure, which is where all of your data is stored, and it's always encrypted in rest, encrypted in transit, there is a dedicated ChatGPT and Perplexity there. So it never leaves the closed garden of Microsoft Azure Cloud. So very secure. But those are the two main engines we're using today. Great. Any other questions?
We did have another question, Dan. How do you see people using the Claire practice probing feature?
Yeah, great. So, today we train most people in our public workshops. They can send just a team of 3 people or something, 4 or 5, whatever, project by project, instead of these big workshops. And then we assign a coach immediately afterwards for their very first project. And the coach meets with all these. So I get to coach, Scott does it, others around the world are coaches. So what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to give assignments in my coaching sessions. Let's practice with Claire. And then I'm also beginning to encourage people between now and the next meeting, just, once a week, take 15 minutes, put it on your calendar, and go out and practice with Claire. We have another tool called Sales Prep that we already created Claire in about a year ago. So up till now, I've been sending them over to Sales Prep to do this practice. Okay, now I can stay all in Blueprinter. But what we're finding is with this practice, you develop these habits for what, why, clarify, and it really kind of burns in kind of a second nature. So I envision that we're going to have people get a lot better at their probing questions a lot faster using Claire. So yeah, pretty exciting to me. One last thought on that, Katie. Up till we had this AI, the only way you could learn was by practice. Only way of developing a skill was practice. We know that's true for anything. But the only way you could practice was in an interview with one of these AIM coaches. You do it once during a workshop and you're done. So that's what we call synchronous practice. Now you can do asynchronous coaching and practice anytime. And for those who are serious about building skills, this changes everything. All right. Thanks, Katie. That was a good one. Any more?
No further questions yet, Dan.
Okay. All right. Very good. If any more come up, just feel free to jump right in. Reach out to Scott or me if you have some questions. If you want to get trained in blueprinting, go out down at the bottom here to blueprintingtraining.com. It explains how we do the training, how you go to public workshops, which we offer about twice a month. And then if you have more questions, just let us know. Katie, does that wrap us up for today?
I believe so. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you taking the time. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thank you.